Hi friends, welcome to our channel. So in last lecture we have seen the standards. Okay, so in the standards there are four types of standards, means international standards, primary standards, secondary standards, and the working standards. Okay, so our next topic is voltage or EMF standards. Okay, so the voltage or EMF standards can be described as primary, secondary, and working standards. Okay, there are three way to describe. Okay, so first of all we have seen we will see the primary standards of voltage or the EMF. Okay, so what is that? So it is the available as a saturated Western cell which is been developed by Edward Weston. Okay, and this is available in voltage cell as the figure. Okay, as you seen that figure, this is available in voltage cell form. Okay, so the anode is made up of mercury. Anode is made up of mercury. This anode is made up of mercury, and the cathode is having an amalgam of cadmium, which is having 1 part of cadmium and 7 parts of the mercury. Okay, so the electrolyte used in H glass vessel is cadmium sulfate. So mercurous sulfate is placed in the form of paste on the top of mercury on the anode side, which acts as a depolarization agent. So this is the chemical scenario. Okay, so on the top of this layer solid crystals of cadmium sulfate are placed such that the depolarization measure assures that the solution is saturated at all temperature. Okay, and the cathode side, the cadmium sulfate crystals placed directly on the cadmium mercury amalgam. Okay, so as long as the amalgam has both solid and liquid present, the EMF of the cell remains absolutely constant. Okay, so this due to this chemical scenario, the EMF of the cell remains absolutely constant. Okay, so the limbs of H glass vessel are hermetically sealed and the external circuit connection are made by platinum wires. Okay, so the voltage drop due to temperature variation of such a cell is about 40 microvolt per Celsius, which are fairly good. Okay, so the temperature variation is fairly good for primary standards of the voltage. Okay, now let's go for the secondary standards for the voltage. Okay, so the secondary standards of voltage is available in form of unsaturated Western cell, as you seen in the figure. Okay, unsaturated Western cell. Okay, so construction of unsaturated cell is similar to unsaturated cell, except that it does not have cadmium sulfate crystals. Okay, so the electrodes used in these are same, but the solution is saturated at 4 degrees Celsius. So therefore it is unsaturated at the room temperature. Okay, so moreover, porous plugs are used over each electrode to hold the material in peace, and thus these cells are portable. Okay, and each cell so compared is to be calibrated with the primary standard to know its exact EMF. The unsaturated cell becomes less stable with aging effect, and decrease in their EMF is about 30 to 50 microvolt per year. Okay, and a typical unsaturated cell has a shorter life of less than 20 years. Okay, it has a temperature coefficient of -10 microvolt per degree centigrade, and an accuracy is 0.005%. Okay, so such a standard provides good precision and temperature stability. ये standard है वो temperature stability and good precision है वो provide करता है. ठीक है, so that is the voltage standards. If you have any query, then contact me directly. Okay, that is the basic means only read. Okay, ये टॉपिक है वो only read करने का है, वो बुक में से आप रीड कर सकते हो, इजी है. ठीक है, then next is inductance standards. Okay, so inductance standard, the standards of inductors are possessing the dimension of length such that it is expressed in electromagnetic system by in which mu permeability is considered as a dimensionless quantity. Okay, so their standards depends upon their dimension and the number of turns of wire used in them. ओके, इंडक्टेंस के ऊपर डिपेंड्स होता है, डायमेंशन के ऊपर कौन सा, क्योंकि नंबर ऑफ टर्न्स ऑफ वायर एंड दी देयर डायमेंशंस. ओके, सो द कंबेल टाइप प्राइमरी स्टैंडर्ड ऑफ म्यूचुअल इंडक्टेंस इज शोन इन हियर. ओके, दिस इज द कंबेल टाइप प्राइमरी स्टैंडर्ड्स ऑफ म्यूचुअल इंडक्टेंस. ओके, so the primary coil is wound with single layer on a grooved cylinder of marble and it is divided into two parts. Okay, primary divided into two parts as you see. Okay, so these two parts are connected in series and separated from each other by a distance equal to 3 times the axial length of each other. Okay, you are getting my point. So the secondary coil has many layers and it is placed between the two primary coils by cutting a channel in the marble cylinder. Okay, this is the secondary coil. Okay, so this cylindrical coil has a diameter of about 1.5 meter times the diameter of primary coil, and this arrangement is ensures that the secondary winding lies in position of almost a zero field. Okay, so the value of flux linked by secondary winding does not depend upon its diameter. Okay, so secondary में flux link होगा वो primary के dimension पर depend नहीं होगा. ठीक है, so in case of secondary standards of mutual inductance, the requirement are such that the inductance value should not vary with time and temperature and should be independent of supply frequency. Okay, कैसे होना चाहिए कि टेम्परेचर वेरिएशन नहीं होना चाहिए एंड इंडक्टेंस है वो टेम्परेचर के साथ वेरी नहीं होना चाहिए, टाइम के साथ भी वेरी नहीं होना चाहिए. ओके, एंड इंडिपेंडेंट ऑफ द सप्लाई फ्रीक्वेंसी. ओके, so they consist of two sets of coil out of which one fixed and another is moving such that the mutual inductance can be varied. Okay, one is fixed while second is okay. So standards of self inductance can be primary or secondary in nature. The formula necessary for the calibration of exact value of inductance in case of primary standards of self inductance is very much complicated as compared to corresponding formula for mutual inductance. Okay, mutual inductance का formula easy है self inductance के according. ठीक है, so therefore normally primary standards of self inductance are very rarely prepared, and the primary standards of mutual inductance is taken as a primary standard of the self inductance. Okay, this is the primary standard, and secondary and working standards of self inductors are constructed so as to have a nominal value which is a simple fraction of 1 Henry. Okay, so while designing and constructing these standards, all precautions are taken similarly to corresponding standards of mutual inductance. Okay, mutual inductance का जो standards है वही हमें उसके according ही हमें self inductance है वो करना है standards. Okay, so the coils used in secondary standards are wound with silk covered standard copper wires, and the formers are made up of marble, and these coils are immersed in melted paraffin wax for some time. Okay, so this is the inductance standards. Okay, this is the inductance standard. Next is resistance standard. Okay, so these standards defined as the absolute value of quantity of resistance which is measured in ohms. Okay, so it is defined in SI unit of system of units and in terms of fundamental units of length and mass. So the absolute measurement of ohm is carried out by comparing with the group of resistance standard which are maintained at the International Bureau of Weights and measured at services. So the group elements are periodically checked against each other, and similar group of standards which are kept at other standards laboratories in the world. Okay, this is the simple construction of typical standard resistance. Okay, so on alloy like manganese is used in for the resistance wire such that constitution of manganese is low. Okay, and manganese is maintained. So there are some properties in book you have seen. Okay, so the resistance coil of such a alloy is so wound such that it has reduced stresses on itself. Okay, रेजिस्टेंस की कोयल है उसको हम एलॉय से माउंट करते हैं क्योंकि उसका स्ट्रेस है वो हमें कम करना है. ठीक है. So the coil is immersed in oil for temperature stability and the entire resistance is housed in moisture free and sealed container. Okay. So their values are such that the change in resistance for change in temperature of 10 degree Celsius is below 50 rpm. ओके, टेम्परेचर वेरिएशन है वो भी ज़्यादा नहीं होना चाहिए रेजिस्टेंस में. ठीक है. सो सच अ स्टैंडर्ड रजिस्टर ऑफर सफिशिएंटली स्टेबल value of resistance. However, possible error due to skin effect, stray inductance and capacitance and contact resistance of terminal are present, but they are minimized by adopting proper manufacturing techniques. Okay, हम proper manufacturing technique यूज़ करके हम वो सब रिड्यूस कर सकते हैं. ठीक है. स्क्रीन इफेक्ट, स्ट्रे इंडक्टेंस इफेक्ट एटसेट्रा. ओके, so this is the simple resistance standard. Okay, next is capacitance standards. Okay, so their standards are available as primary and secondary or the working standard. So first is primary, sorry, okay, so the that is primary and secondary standards of capacitance will be discussed in the next video lecture. Okay, if you any query then contact me.